Hello and welcome to IGEL TechChannel. My name is Drieling. I'm Senior Systems Engineer at IGEL Technology, and in this video I want to tell you something about our administrative accounts in the Universal Management Suite. How to start with administrative accounts. I will start with creating a connection to the Active Directory. It's not necessary, of course you could work with local users, but I think in most cases it's interesting to have the Active Directory connection for importing the IT users and the groups from Active Directory. So let's begin. Go to UMS Administration, Active Directory, and click on the plus symbol. Here you can type your domain name and just click on Resolve, and then your domain controllers should appear here in this list. Then we need a user that has a read-write to the Active Directory. We don't need a writing write. In my case it's my administrator. Provide the password, and then you can test the connection, and then you get a response if the password is correct, if the domain controller is responding, stuff like this, and say OK. This is the first step. Now we can start import users from our Active Directory to the UMS. So first user that I want to create is a user that is only allowed to download things from our website. For this I do not need really an Active Directory user, so this user I will start with a normal local user. I click on New and create a new user, download, with the password download, so that I don't have to send the super user to the thin clients if they want to download some background images or something like this. And the only right I have to give him is the snapshot management. Everything else we don't need for the download user. This is now our first user. He's only allowed to download things from the web server that is built into the management server. But for the next steps, it's more interesting to import something. So, for example, I have a group in my Active Directory for my IT team that is working in the UMS to create profiles, to assign the profiles, to roll out firmware updates. So I will search for IT and see my groups from my Active Directory. Of course, I could also import users directly, so I see the user accounts here, but it's more efficient to work with groups because then I only have to put a new user in the group in the Active Directory and he will have all the rights in the UMS that he needs. So I will start with my IT administration group and say next, import these accounts and finish. So now the users in this group are allowed to log on to the UMS, but at the moment they wouldn't see anything. So what I have to do is create the rights. I can right click on profiles, for example, and click on access control and add my IT administration group. Say okay, they are not only allowed to read this, they also have full access to all this stuff. The same I will do for thin clients. So everything where they have to work, I will add here the specific user rights and say, okay, they have full access to all areas because it's my IT team. The next group, let's also do the firmware update, of course, and the files. So they should have access to everything because it's my trusted IT team. And of course, jobs should be managed by them. And my views. You see, you can do this on every tree in our management server. And now they have access to profiles, thin clients, views, jobs, files, and updates. So let's do the next step. Let's import the next group. So what do I have else in my IT team? I have an IT help desk. So double click the IT help desk, import, and say finish. So this group should only be allowed to see the thin clients and to shadow them. So let's right click thin clients, access control, and add the IT help desk. And now they are allowed to read this tree. And I want to shadow the devices, send the messages, and maybe they should also be allowed to reboot and wake up a system. The last team I have is a local IT team in a branch office. So I go to Administration Accounts, go on Import, Next, and start with IT. And here is my IT team local. Double click it, Next, Import, Finish, that's all. And now I will go to my local branch office here, for example, and say, okay, you will have access here. So team local. And here they have full access to everything. Okay, that's all. So now let's test. I will start a new console. And now I will log on with the user of the group. So for example, user 1 at local.presales.igel.com, and my password, hopefully I remember it correct. Nope, of course not. So, and now you see that everything here is like expected. We have access to all areas. We can see the thin clients. We can work with the thin clients. Let's log on with the next user. So now I will do this with my help desk team. I think it should probably be my user number 2. Let's take a look. Yeah, and here we see the whole tree here, but we don't see any profiles, views, jobs, or something like this. And if I right click the client, I see that I'm allowed to wake up the client, reboot it, to shadow it, but nothing else. I cannot assign profiles, I cannot do anything else except these 3 functions. And the last team is my local IT team. So the next step now is logging in with my 3rd user that should be in my local IT team. And let's take a look what he can do in the UMS. So if we now take a look, we see that he is only seeing the tree where he is allowed to work on. So for this user, it's only Bremen existing in the UMS. If we take a look to another user, we see there's also Augsburg, UK, Reading. But for this user, for the local user, it's only the folder Bremen that is existing in the UMS, and he only has the possibility to work in this folder with the thin clients. Thanks for your attention. If you have any questions, feel free to ask our pre-sales support or take a look to IGEL eDocs.